Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, From the Depths of Darkness to the Light of Success. I am your host, Chris Swick, and on this podcast, we talk about mental health, addictions, eating disorders, ADHD, and really anything anyone's afraid to talk about. We talk about it on this show and make people afraid to not talk about these things. I believe everyone's story is valuable at the end of the day. Doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. You're all welcome on this platform of mine to share your story. I believe if you share your story and get vulnerable, it helps you heal too at the end of the day. But before we get started, head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications. You can catch all the episodes there, full video content for each and every episode over on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and really anywhere you can find a podcast, I'm on there. And head over to my Instagram page at Depths of Darkside and check out all the great content over there, everyone. With no further ado, I'd love to introduce you to my next guest. I got Jaslyn Ouellett. She's a nurse from out in Western Canada, out in the prairies, actually, not Western, too far west yet.
Yeah.
But you want to take it away and let them know a little bit about you and what you're all about, Jaslyn?
Sure. My name is Jaslyn Ouellett. I'm a licensed practical nurse. I just started working in harm reductions. I also got a casual position in corrections. Just started working in Cumberland House, Northern Saskatchewan. And I also been working around Nipawin, Melfort, Tisdale area in Saskatchewan for about 6 years. Really big into mental health. That's my passion. As an LPN, it took a little while to get into mental health, to be able to work in there, but I am loving what I do now.
That's amazing, Jaslyn. And why the passion for mental health as well for yourself?
I guess it started when I was a kid. I have lots of, how do you say it? Lots of alcohol, lots of drug use. My mom was schizophrenic. My dad is a druggie. He's addicted to cocaine and crack. And then just like growing up, I grew up in very bad neighborhoods, I guess you could say, where there was like a lot of drugs, gangs, and things like that related. So I guess I've been thrown into it since I was a baby. And as I grew up, I just continued to have a huge passion in it.
And what was your choice for the job as a nurse? Was it a passion of yours growing up too, or was it something that sort of came later in life?
It came later in life. So growing up, I went to school, I had dyslexia, and I graduated at a grade 4 reading level. And I ended up reading a book. I didn't have lots of confidence or whatever. I used like a reading pen so you can like scan the book and it reads to you, which is really neat. So I read my first book when I was like 24 and it was Twilight. And after that, I got some confidence and I put myself through, like I upgraded and then put myself through nursing school because I actually wanted to go to Africa to give little kids immunizations and help out in Africa. I didn't end up getting there, but that what drove me to become a nurse to begin with. And then when I was in nursing school, I met a patient that was just coming off of meth, was drug induced, had schizophrenia, and he was hallucinating, quite suicidal, and trying to protect his family because the voices would tell him that if he doesn't kill himself, they were going to kill his kids. So I got to work with him. And after that, I was like obsessed and in love with mental health. Like, it's just so amazing.
Yeah, it really gives you a whole new perspective when you're working with all different types of backgrounds, diversities, and kids and cultures and stuff like that, especially out where you are. So it really gives you, lack of better words, that wake up call to see what's really going on in our society.
Yeah. And in like our area where I'm at or whatever, homelessness is a problem, addictions is a problem. Like, it's, I guess addiction's a problem everywhere. Everybody has a story or knows somebody who's had problems with addictions or themselves.
No, for sure. And it's definitely a huge problem everywhere. And we could definitely use some more funding in so many different areas in our country alone, let alone other parts of the world and stuff from other people I've talked to. I'd like to focus on our country because we could really use a lot of help in so many different areas. And the money I just don't think is getting there. And that's why we see lots of these organizations raising funds and going out and doing things and spending out of their own pocket to help the homeless, to help the addicts and stuff that are living on the streets. And it's nice to see, but you can only do so much by yourself.
Yeah. And then it's trying to get a whole community together to help these people too, that makes a huge difference. If there's more people that come together and we all talk to each other and just bring it all together, it makes the world of difference for these people. you know?
100%. No, and I totally agree with you there for sure. As long as we as a whole, as a community, can band together and help one another and help those people that are less fortunate and struggling out there, that makes a huge difference. It's a huge problem all over the place in small towns, big cities, everywhere in between, with the homeless especially.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand it.
No, they don't, and I find I've heard stories of other cities dropping off their homeless to other cities and getting rid of them thing too, and it's crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, yeah.
It is, and I wanna circle back a little bit to your dyslexia. So what was it like growing up with dyslexia for you? I can't even say the word, but that must have been very hard for you.
Actually, it was, like, when I was growing up, my grandma, who I ended up living with, we moved school. Like, I went to 4 different schools in 1 year. We lived in 8 different houses, so I jumped around, and then I got diagnosed in grade 2 of having dyslexia. I got held back, had to do grade 2 over again, and then going through school or whatever, I would just look at pictures, and when I went to get diagnosed, for my dyslexia, he said that I'm a genius when it comes to memorization. If somebody shows me something, I just pick it up like that. I just need to see it and I can do it, which is amazing. I'm lucky that I had that. And then also, so whenever I'd see somebody or pictures or whatever else, I'd be able to pick up. Going through school, I had like lots of friends because I'm a space cadet. Well, I have ADHD too. So I'm like all over the place half the time. And it to me gave me a chance to meet people and put myself out there. And I had all these friends and I went to school to be a social butterfly and I never thought I'd be able to do anything. And my friends actually helped me get through school. Like sometimes I would cheat, like on exams to make it through school and stuff. And that's how I ended up being one of the first people out of my family to graduate. I didn't cheat on everything, but there was some things that, but having that personality to go talk to people and see people or whatever and make friends really helps be able to
No,
make it through school.
and then that would really help, especially if you're a social butterfly and an extrovert, which it sounds like you were. Correct me if I'm wrong. It really sounds like you were an extrovert, but also moving around a lot. 4 different schools in 1 year must have been really tough on you as well, though.
Yeah, making friends, but I was lucky enough, like, I'd go to a park and I'd just start talking to a kid, and then we'd become best friends. Like, one of my best friends from grade 4 that I met, we were at the school playground, and I just played tag with her, and then we were inseparable and been friends ever since.
Oh, that's amazing. You don't see that too often anymore. But you have that one friend that you really stick close to or really stay in touch with. I have a friend who we don't talk all that often anymore because we live our separate lives, have families and stuff like that. But it's nice when you do catch up. It's not like you missed a beat or anything like that too. So
Yeah.
it's nice that you can still have that connection with that person.
Yeah, and me growing up, like, bouncing around schools and different places, it was and just, like, having a hard time actually going to school because I had a hard time reading or math or whatever else, having those friends really made me wanna go to school and participate. But
It gave you that burst of energy in the morning to you look forward to it, it sounds like.
yeah, yeah,
So were
definitely.
you ever bullied for having the dyslexia?
Actually, as a nurse, I got bullied a little bit. I had comments about that I shouldn't be trust giving out medication because I can't read and stuff. So as a nurse, I did. Not really in school. I never get bullied for being dyslexic. Sometimes people like I was in a special program for a little while there and I got put in foster care because my dad was a drug addict. And my foster mom would put me down and be like, "You're never gonna amount to anything because you can't read," and all of this stuff. So her putting me down so much boosted me to be like, I'm getting out of these programs. I'm gonna teach myself how to read. I'm gonna graduate. I'm gonna amount to something. I'm gonna prove you wrong. And it really gave me that boost to push myself and do things more on my own than to depend on my friends or anybody else.
No, and that's amazing too, being put down by your foster mom and stuff like that just gave you that drive to prove people wrong, and here you are today, you graduated nursing school, you're a nurse
Yeah.
and stuff like that, so that's amazing.
The funny thing that I realized a while back is she actually was going to school to become a nurse when I was in her foster care. So it's amazing that I did it. And meanwhile, she was doing the same thing, which is ironic. Not that I went into nursing school for that, but
Hey, but it is ironic, and here we are today, and Jaslyn's a nurse.
yeah.
So why do you feel your ADHD helped you out when you were younger?
Um,
Why is that?
it gave me that energy. And if without it, I don't think I'd be so outgoing. And I was such a space cadet. So I'd see something, I'd be like, oh, hey, look at that. And I would just hold people in to look at things with me all the time. Or like a butterfly would go by and be like, let's go see this butterfly. Or meeting kids on the playground. I was so easy to distract or go over here or go over there. And it also made me like I feel like it made me more curious about everything. Like I wanted to know everything. Like I had so many different friends from different groups. Like I hung out with the preps, I hung out with the gothic, the smokers, like all punks. Like I hung out with everybody because I was so like, ooh. And my mind would always be on the go and very out there. So I was like, there would always be somebody from another group that was interested in something that I was interested in because I was thinking 100 times per minute and looking around and wanting to know about this. And then this person would want to know about it too. But I could never, there's nobody in one group that I ever fit exactly with because my mind was always going 100 miles per minute.
I totally get what you're saying for sure. And that if I don't write a little to-do list down every day, even for work or to do with the podcast or stuff around the house, nothing gets done because my mind is going this way, that way. The hamster's always running, and it
By
just
the end
keeps
of the
going.
by the end of the day, you don't know what to do anymore. You're like,
No,
did I do that? I can't remember.
exactly. I don't know, but some days I just don't care to do anything either. I just want to lay on the couch or want to eat
Yeah.
a tub of ice cream or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
Do you take your ADHD and run with it, use it as a superpower today sort of thing? Or do you have are you on medication for it?
I actually take medication, but I take it PRN. I find if I'm going on a long drive, I need to take my pills because I will be speeding. I will be touching every single thing out there. I definitely need to be medicated when I'm driving. But other than that, I feel like if I don't have all this energy and this hyperness, my mind is wandering all over the place. I don't feel like myself. So I try not to take it too often.
Fair enough. Do you have to reel yourself back in then, or like you just take it when you need it, it sounds.
Yeah.
And which one are you on?
Jen.
Okay, okay. I've heard of dextrogen. I think they've even tried it on me, but it didn't work. It was like a trial and error thing for a few years after I got clean and sober to see what would work and finally found one that worked, so sticking to it.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah,
Play around a little bit, find out what works for you.
exactly.
One thing will work for one person and then it won't work for the next.
Exactly. It just all depends at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
found one that works now, so that's all that matters. So what was it like growing up for you with your parents? I know you said you went from foster home, lived with your grandmother. Now was your mom, was she diagnosed as schizophrenic when you were very young, or were you sort of she grow into that sort of thing, or
So when I was born, my aunt told me a story or whatever that my mom has told me that she was undiagnosed when I was born, schizophrenic. And when I was born, my aunt told me that my mom went into a house party, left me on the steps while it was raining, and I was just a baby. So I was like 6 months old. And she called my dad and was like, come get your fucking kid. And left me there. My dad came and picked me up. And then I lived with my grandma after that. Like she ended up taking me in. My mom at the time too was like undiagnosed, partying, like doing who knows what at the time. So it's not her fault or anything. And me and her have a really good relationship now. And she is on medication. She's the sweetest lady ever. But at that time, she was unable to recognize those things and was focused on one thing, partying or whatever else. And my dad at the time, he was selling drugs, doing drugs. He was pretty messed up too, in and out of jail. So he couldn't take care of me. And then my grandma took me. She already had. So I grew up with my aunt, who's 4 years older than me. We grew up like sisters. So it was really good that way. My grandma did the best that she could being a welfare parent.
that's amazing. And you don't hold any grudges over your mom's head, it sounds like either, because it's not her fault. She didn't ask to be schizophrenic and stuff like that, but it's nice to hear that she has the help she needs and the medication she needs today. and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And hopefully your father will come around someday for yourself as well. And
That's a battle I've been trying to fight. I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon. And he's told me while he was high before that, no, I'm always gonna be doing that.
and do you try and have conversations with him today, or do you talk to him still?
Yet we still have a relationship. It goes up and down. It's a love-hate relationship. Definitely working in harm reduction and working with addicts. I try to tackle it in a different way. So I try to give him as much love as I can and at the same time keep boundaries that I won't get hurt from. Like he can't just come in and take all my money or come in and stay at my house while I'm gone for the weekend because half my shit will be missing. So I keep those boundaries, but I still let him know I love you. I'm here for you. You can still call me. Like that's never going to change. And that I wish that he'd get better. And while he's using drugs, I need to keep these boundaries up. You can't come stay at my house when I'm not home. Those kind of things.
And is he very understanding of those boundaries?
Yeah, for the most part. Sometimes we won't talk for a couple of weeks because of it, but for the most part, he's pretty good.
That's good to hear that he's pretty amicable about it and stuff like that with
Yeah.
the boundaries. And it's good to have those boundaries too, because if you don't have those boundaries, people will walk all over you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get taken advantage of, and then you keep the cycle keeps repeating, and then you have all this hatred to that person where they're sick, they can't help it. Like,
No, and for sure. And for me, it just took me to get sick and tired of being sick and tired at the end of the day. So that's where I just like, I'm done. I had to just bow down and just give up. I'm done. Put
yeah,
my hands in the air and just say, I am done. I'm done with the shit that I was putting myself through, my family through, and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it wasn't fair to anyone. It wasn't fair to myself. It wasn't fair to my parents, my kids, my partner, any of that.
yeah.
Let's circle back to the harm reduction a little bit. So what do you think, what are your views on the harm reduction as opposed to going full sober, full clean and sober sort of thing? What are the differences and what are the pros and the cons?
I don't think a lot of people, I think it takes a certain person to be able to go clean and sober, like just quit randomly. Like it takes a very strong certain person to be able to just do that. And most people, I feel like, have trauma or some kind of things that they aren't ready to just quit and face. Like we usually use substances, is my understanding or whatever, to avoid like some kind of trauma or something that has gone wrong, or we're trying to escape something. So most people, that's the way that they escape that horrible thing that they want to get away from. Like that's where they go to escape life or trauma or whatever. And for them to just quit cold turkey, like those people that do it, it's unbelievable. I'm just wow. I'm assuming you were one of them.
Yeah, it took me a long time, quite a few years to do it, but the time was right. It was, like I said, I was just pretty much dead myself. It was either life or death at that point. If I didn't quit, I was going to be dead sooner than later.
Yeah. I actually applied to work at a clinic in Vancouver where they prescribe people meth or heroin and opiates and stuff like that. And they slowly like they'll give them their supply or whatever their drugs, and then they'll take street drugs, and eventually they'll stop taking the street drugs and take safer drugs. And then eventually the goal is to start lowering them down and microdosing them. And it found like when they do get to that level or whatever, they're functional in society, they're able to work, hold jobs, like it's huge. And they can still do their math to help with that addictive part, like with withdrawals and everything else. And they're more functioning. And they find eventually love for life again. They're not just an empty shell. Crime rates go down because they're not just waking up in the morning trying to get their necks fixed, which is amazing. As far like in most communities, they don't have that. I think Vancouver is way ahead of their time. And in like my community, I would never expect somebody to just quit cold turkey. I would expect help with like therapy. What else? Like therapy, social work, try to like work with their families, building relationships again, building self-esteem, dealing with their trauma, like all of those things. And slowly, if they quit, great. If they have a relapse, no judgment. Like we all have weak moments. Like it's just another building block. And every day I feel like Once you're an addict, every day you can have a slip out. That can be any time, but it's that every day that you don't, giving yourself a pat on the back, being like, nah, you didn't slip up today. And maybe it'll be 20 years, 30 years, maybe you'll never slip up, which is fucking, it's amazing.
No, 100%. And I don't disagree with you on what Vancouver's doing. I have heard about that clinic or facility out there that, is offering safer drugs. And I think that's the way it should be. There should be in every community offering the safe drug supply, because the drug supply right now is just so tainted, and every time you turn around, someone's dying of an overdose with the tainted
Yeah.
fentanyl and everything these days. So it's really a sad case. I can't even count how high anymore, like the friends I've lost, especially through this pandemic, between suicide and overdoses alone. It's astronomical. The rates have just shot right through the roof over the last couple of years.
Yeah. And it just keeps getting higher and higher. But then again, we don't have support for mental health either.
No, we don't. And it's just astonishing to me that we don't have the right support that we need. These even younger teenagers and stuff going to hospitals and wanting the help, and then sending them away and with a no, here, yeah, come back in 3 weeks. That's the quickest we can get you in to see a psychologist or someone to help you out. They need help right away. They're not going there for the fun of it to ask for help,
Yeah.
to be helped in 3 weeks. And then the next day, what do you know? They've committed suicide. That's on the system. That should be on the system. It shouldn't be on
Yeah.
that person or whatever. It's not their fault that our system is so messed up right now all across Canada.
Yeah. I would have to agree. It's huge. Yeah. And then you have people that want to make a difference, like per se me or whatever, and you try, but you can't because the system's blocking you, or there's not enough help out there, or we don't have the funding, or they have funding cuts, or like at least with COVID now, I think now that COVID's coming to an end, there's lots of awareness with mental health, and there's been more and more donations or more funding towards mental health with the end of COVID, which I guess is a kind of positive thing. But yeah, yeah, it still needs a lot of work. And there's lots of people that have drug overdoses, and then the next day they're out in the community, and you're like, that person just tried to overdose themselves with drugs or kill themselves, and we didn't do anything for them, and now they're out walking around.
Yeah, it's a sad state this mental health system is of ours and everything else that's going on. But hopefully one day we can get better. We just got to keep advocating and being the voice for the voiceless and doing what we're doing here, just having these chats. I think it's very important to do those types of things too, Jaslyn.
Yeah.
So tell me about the program you were telling me about offline that you're working on for coping and stuff. What's that all?
Okay, so I am obsessed with this. I have taught, like, wrote all the ministrations of education in Canada for each province. And I want to get coping week in schools where it teaches from like kindergarten to grade 12, 1 week a year for an hour a day, coping skills. And it builds on each other for that developmental age. So by the time, say in kindergarten, you learn deep breathing. What do you do when you're angry? You can take a deep breath, you can take a step back, you can come back after or whatever, give yourself time to settle down and then come back to the situation. Or even like when a kid gets really angry, just tell them to breathe and take a few breaths. Like just little things like that for high school in relationships, dealing like telling them different ways of coping with things instead of running to alcohol and drugs. You go for a walk, have a bath, do some sensory things, look around the room, name 5 things or whatever, start calming your mind down. There's lots of different exercises that you can do to help nurture yourself. So it's basically like different things like that, different techniques, different coping skills that these kids can learn. So say that they have a breakup or whatever, they're not running to go kill themselves because some guy left them. You build that self-esteem or whatever, that love for yourself, those coping skills to know how to deal with it in different ways. I find like with what I'm trying to do or whatever, I'm starting to build the program on my own and try to find peer-reviewed stuff as best as I can. And most of the stuff is for adults that I find. So I'm trying to portray it back to kids. But also, like before that ever gets implemented in schools, what I found for the Ministry of Education, they want it to be more peer-reviewed articles or by somebody that's already been studied or things like that. But in some places, there are schools that are taking it upon themselves to, I love this idea, where they do skill of the month. So it could be skill of the month is deep breathing this month. And then the whole school practices that, which is incredible. Like something so simple like that can help with mental health. And by the time, if you started teaching kids these coping skills, by the time they got out of grade 12, instead of ending up in therapy for 15 years like I had to do, you end up knowing those skills already. You know how to deal with your anger, how to deal with emotions, how to deal with breakups, how to deal with stress. There's so many stress related diseases out there. If you had those coping skills or knew how to deal with stress, when you get out, you're not going to have all that stress. You'll be able to deal with it. And then there's going to be less disease, less mental health issues, less school shootings, less depression. People aren't going to jump off the railing and just try to kill themselves. And once you learn it as a kid, it just comes natural to you. Like I was in grade 4 and a girl came in to school one time for half an hour and was like, "What do you guys do when you get really angry?" And I was like an angry kid. Like I was like that kid that would throw huge tantrums and like blow up in the middle of a store. My mom would just walk away and be like, "I'm not dealing with you." And the girl's like deep breathing and she would teach us deep breathing or whatever and how to like when you get angry, you need to remove yourself from the situation and then come back. It could be count yourself down to 5 seconds. And that stuck with me and I never have tantrums anymore. I hope not. Way more calmer than I never get angry. It's very I think I've been like really pissed off like twice in my whole life since then. It's amazing that those skills that you learn, a girl that came in for half an hour taught me that and how it has affected my life now.
Well, that's amazing. And, I hope at one point in time or one day that this coping week is implemented into the schools across Canada. I think that would be an awesome idea, starting with a week. But I think they should be teaching those skills instead of teaching them. There's so many things that should be taught in schools at a younger age with mental health, substance use, coping mechanisms, and teaching yourself self love, self esteem, building that self esteem. I
Yeah.
think it's important for every kid to learn for sure. I appreciate you
Yeah.
sharing that moment there, Jaslyn, for sure.
Yeah, especially there's so many kids out there that the parents aren't there to help support them. So school is the only thing that they have to learn any kind of skills or self-love. And there's a lot of kids that are like that. It's yeah. And it's even beneficial for people that have parents in their life, like who wouldn't benefit from something like that.
I think every kid would benefit. I wish we had those types of things when I went to school at a young age and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But I think lots of the kids these days have too many darn devices in front of them and not just running out and playing at the playground or playing hide and seek or going out just doing those types of things outdoors. They need to
Yeah.
get more active, I find. There's a lot of less activity and a lot more just sitting in front of these devices or in front of the TV and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I hope one day the kids can get back to those things. I try and get my kids outside as often as possible when the weather's really nice for sure.
Yeah, it's way easier than dealing with your kid to put them in front of a TV and then walk away for an hour because they're distracted now, or hand them a phone while you're out eating dinner with a friend, because then you don't have to deal with your kid, which isn't always it's not the best solution. Like we're teaching our kids wrong.
No, 100% for sure. If there was one thing you could one good piece of advice you could give the younger generation, what
Oh, that's a good one. Things always change. Life is always changing. No matter what you're going through in that moment, it's going to change. Like you might get bullied. You might have a parent that is addicted to drugs. You might be in a horrible situation, but that's not going to be that way forever. You're going to grow up. Things are going to change. That bully might end up being your best friend one day. Like life is always changing. You're never going to be stuck in that situation forever. So don't just react. Don't just go off of something. And there is things like it's always changing. There might be good times, there might be bad times, but it's always changing.
I like that. It's always changing. It's so true. Life is always changing. It's not going to be the same from one minute to the next. There's always going to be something new that pops up in your life for sure.
Yeah. And you might be going through a horrible flipping week a year from now or whatever. You might be like, wow, that situation was awful, but I'm glad that I went through it.
No, for
Like,
sure. It's sometimes you have to go through these hard times in life in order to become better.
yeah, look at what you're doing. You be an addict and now you're helping people. Like, this is so incredible what you're doing.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. We're not going to boost my ego today. For many years, I had a big enough ego. It was very inflated.
Well, try not to make any more comments.
No, I appreciate that. Those are very nice and kind words of you. It's nice to be able to help people and give people this platform to share their story and to help. As long as I feel if we can help one person with each episode, we've done our job or I've done my job. It's a win for me as long as it helps one person. And I know it helps many more, but I just love helping just one person. That's all I want to do every day, whether it's helping someone, saying hi to someone on the street, or just helping someone hold the door for them, any of those types of things.
That is beautiful. Growing up or whatever, I had a friend that his brother ended up killing somebody or whatever, and we were in school, and I gave him a smile and whatever, carried on with my life or whatever. And it was like his first day back ever since everybody knew about what his brother did. And he ended up like writing me years later, being like, "You smiled at me and it helped me get through the day." Like that made my whole life. Like I cried for a day, being like, "That is so sweet that somebody like that he told me that and that I was able to do that for him." Like it's so beautiful.
It's awesome to do those things because you never know what someone else is going through. Someone else is always going to be going through something worse off than you are at the end of the day, but you never know. So that smile could make a difference in the world of someone just passing by them on the street or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, just like a nice kindness. You see somebody on the street or whatever, you give them a sandwich. Like that could change their whole life forever. Some people that are homeless, that are addicted to drugs sitting on the street, they feel like they've never been seen before. And you even saying hi to them, like just acknowledging those people makes a huge difference in their lives. Like,
It does. They're humans just like you and I. Yes, they may be homeless or they may be addicts or whatever the case may be. We're all human at the end of the day.
yeah,
We all bleed from the same pot.
yeah, we all need love. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, it's beautiful.
So what do you value most in a friendship today, Jazz?
Trust and I guess just being there. Like I have a lot of my friends there because I didn't have a good upbringing and I didn't have a lot of family around, I guess you could say. So most of my friends have actually like their families have taken me in. I have so many second families and I feel like I've been adopted 10 times over in different people's homes. So I'm so lucky for that. Like once yeah, I have 10 friends that I'm part of their families, and it's just amazing. Like, I go to see them or whatever, and I'm visiting with their parents for an hour or 2 before I even talk to them.
So no, I feel their trust and loyalty for me as well. And being loyal, like I gotta be able to feel that if I'm not around those friends or whatever, they're not gonna talk shit about me behind my back and stuff
Yeah,
like that. They're gonna stick up for me if someone says something that shouldn't have been said about me and stuff like that. So I feel like trust and loyalty is huge for sure. And just showing compassion and having empathy as well is huge.
yeah, yeah. The compassion, empathy, caring about each other, being there to listen to each other, knowing that if you're going through a bad day, that you can pick up the phone and you can call them anytime. Just having somebody there for you. Growing up, I didn't have that, and then having somebody, like a friend to be there, it means yeah, I guess that means the world, just being there for somebody.
For sure. We've come to the end of the show today, and I truly appreciate you coming on. Before we go, though, where can everyone find you on social media if they want to follow you? I know you don't post a whole ton or whatever. If they want to follow you, where can they find you, Jaslyn?
I have Instagram, it's OPO101. It's probably the best platform. And
Okay.
hopefully I'll start posting things about mental health and coping skills and
I
setting
think you
something up
should. I
with
think
that.
that'd be an amazing idea. Start posting stuff about that and putting that stuff out there. I think that'd be huge to teach people, and people would love to learn from you for sure. So, yeah, everyone go check her out over on Instagram, OPO101. Thank you again, Jaslyn, for coming on the show today. I truly appreciate you taking the time. And look at you didn't do bad after all.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Thank you.